Welcome to ABL Television. This is Keeping It Real show with Genevieve Ama. This is a brand new show for 2023 and the focus is on Africa. Why the focus on Africa? It baffles me that a continent, a whole continent with everything, all the resources, the richness of resources, oil, gas, diamond, gold, land, sunshine, and there is still a struggle on the continent of Africa. So the next series, this year, I will be mixing it up, but I want to focus on Africa for now because I think it's time. This is the due time. You know, in the world, there's a season for everything. There's a season for different nations to gain power. China is right now developed and gaining power, or people would say is a powerful nation. I believe Africa, the continent of Africa, is the same. So the Keeping It Real show, hence the title, We Keep It Real. So my analysis, I'm going to keep it real. The way, my opinions, I'm going to keep it real. But this show is not just about me. It's an interactive show. So I'm going to be speaking as if you are in my sitting room because your audience, the audience of ABL Television, are family. So I may be referring you as family, brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles. Here I am. Number one, I just want to give thanks to the Almighty God for allowing me to stand here and talk and address you all, talk about what's on my mind and how we can move forward with Africa, the continent. Europe is doing well, USA is doing it, Asia is doing well. What about Africa? And Africa as a continent, we have the most resource-rich products and services that we can give to the world. My focus is going to be sub-Saharan Africa. And just so that we learn, the sub-Saharan African is excluding North Africa, and I will do some comparison with North Africa, but I'm focusing on the areas of the continent that seems to be having the most difficulty in development. And we all know there are many reasons, many issues, cultural boundaries, all of those things, past things that have taken place, past issues that have taken place, colonialism has taken place. All of those things could be factors why Africa is not developing. Are we always going to use that as an excuse? Sub-Saharan Africa, I'll be focusing more, or comes under South, East and West, and North Africa is another section of it, but Sub-Saharan Africa is South, East and West. So those are the areas that I'll be covering. It's baffling to me, as I've already said, why a continent like this is struggling to do better. Take Ghana for instance. Ghana, we walk on gold. Ghana is filled with gold. Some houses are built with gold underneath the earth. And yet, look at the economy of Ghana right now. So is Africa not developing? And I'm not saying because Africa, when people say Africa, Africa is a huge continent. So if somebody's talking about a specific state, for example, Ghana or whichever country that you want to mention, and they say Africa, they lump the whole Africa. You can't do that. It's a continent. So education here is that we need to, if you're talking about a specific state, nation, we need to identify, because not all of the nations are doing bad. Take Rwanda for instance. President Kagame seems to be doing so well in Rwanda in terms of development, technology, infrastructure. So if this president is doing well, What about the situation in Ghana now and even neighboring countries? Angola, all of those places that have got diamonds, rich resources, and yet we're still struggling. It's baffling to me. So this is the introductory to this new series. These are the areas that I'm going to be discussing, analysing what is happening now, what we can do better. As I'm standing here speaking, subscribe, like, go to LBO television, YouTube, Facebook, subscribe, like, thumbs up, and most importantly, this show is not just about me standing here and speaking in front of a camera. I'm speaking to you as if you're in my sitting room and conversing and discussing how Africa can move forward. Now, I have noticed something. Are we always going to blame what happened in the past? And a lot of things happen in Africa. Africa, we had our own system. We had a very organized system, an organized empire. All the different cultures had their own cultures, but we lived together well in peace. And then Africa was carved up. Europeans came to Africa, the continent of Africa, they discovered all the wealth, all the resources, and they decided to carve up. Carve up meaning some Europeans took some part of Africa, the English took some parts, the Germans took some part, France, Angola, or not Angola, Angola is another, but for example, France, Ivory Coast, all of those areas, the French-speaking part, the French took part, then you've got the German-speaking parts, German took that, the English-speaking part, like Ghana, we speak English there. So, Africa was basically carved up and robbed. All the resources that the Europeans are now enjoying, all the developments that they have in their countries, majority were taken from Africa. They went in there, they colonized the countries, they colonized the continent. And yes, all the Africans have got their independence. But these people, these Europeans, left the continent in chaos. They left the continent robbed. They left the continent messed up. The cultures messed up. Identities of Africans messed up. So could this be the reason why Africa is still struggling with development? It's another thing that I've analysed and thought of often is that we had our own culture in Africa, in the continent of Africa. We had our own economic system. We had a way of doing businesses amongst ourselves. Then, when they carved it up, they left with their own ideology. So, for example, when you take Ghana, and I will use the reference of Ghana often because that's what I'm originally from. So I guess I would know more about that culture. But I will study other cultures and I'll come back with comparison. It's no different. In Ghana, for instance, they emulate the American system as well as the British system. They are living under the economic system, the economic strategy, the economic system of America. Is that why perhaps Ghana is not developing or Africa is not developing? Because we're using a system that does not work for us. For example, look at China, and I'm going to come back to China in the middle of this series. China is a phenomenon. If China can do it, why can't? In fact, China relies a lot on the resources of Africa. They trade with the African states. All the minerals they're getting from Africa and obviously South America as well, but again, the focus is on Africa because it baffles me. Oops, excuse me, people. It baffles me that with all our rich resources, we're not getting anywhere. Corruption, definitely corruption is part of it. Bribery is part of it. Governance is part. There's no governance. Governance is part of it. Ghana right now is anarchy. Everybody does what they want. And I'm not blaming the people. If you are a good leader and you're not corrupted, you're transparent, you have governance, systems work, the police are doing their jobs, the armies are doing their jobs, the people in government, ministry are doing their jobs. Guess what? The people will follow, the nations will follow. But if you're a leader and you are corrupted, it's like being a father bringing up their children. If you're a father and the children sees that you're corrupted, you're a thief, the children become thieves. I can't stand here living on this earth knowing that we have a continent that should be the most richest and the most powerful, and it's not. Are we always going to look back and say, because of colonization, most of our people were taken out of Africa, the African descendants, this race is dispersed, it's all over the world, still being persecuted? The reason why I want to focus on Africa is that whilst we're living in Europe, the African people, African descendants are still going through a hard time, persecution, jobs, you name it. We still have to work 10 times as hard, study 10 times as hard to get to where we want to go. But if Africa, we get our state correct, we get our people back, if our leaders will stop stealing from us, being corrupted, become in partnerships with some of the Europeans or outside of those that are Africans, if they can stop being in partnership and focus on having pride in developing the states, the African states, then things will be better for us. A lot of people want to go back to their motherland, Africa. And even those that have gone back, they're still having problems. When is this going to stop? I'm very optimistic. I am an optimistic person. I have faith that, when you read the Bible, God never used masses. God never used thousands of people. God used a few, the remnants. There could be a few remnants, a few people that has a love for the nation, for the people, want to bring prosperity as a leader to the people. God can use you. If you have the right heart and you have boldness, you can do it. China has done it, but I'll come back to China again. Has China succeeded because they are a one-state party? And I've spoken to many people, I've spoken to a few scholars, a few friends. I've even spoken to my producer, and he thinks that China has succeeded because it's a one state and no one, I'm going to use the word bully. Other countries, other nations cannot bully the Chinese because it's a one state party. Are they autocratic? They might be. Is it a communist party? They might say yes and they might not. They might say no. The point is, they rule their own sovereignty. They are rulers of their own country. Nobody can tell them what to do. Should Africa go this way? I don't believe in a leader being autocratic, forcing his or her idea on the people. But could it be that a one-party state will have more control of ensuring that the right governance is in place, corruption is rooted out, bribery is rooted out, law and order, that means the police are in check, the soldiers do their jobs anyway, every good soldier will do their job and protect the nation. I can't stand here in this 2023 and accept that the continent that has the most richest resource is still the poorest, and I'm seeing people suffer. Why is it that I ask myself, African leaders, if you're doing your best, go ahead, but if you're a leader and you're not taking care of your country, but you come in to steal and use corruption and invite your family into high positions, your friends into high positions, people that are not even qualified to manage the country. Does that mean that you have love for the nation? No, you don't. Does that mean that you want prosperity for the people? No, you don't. Right now, I'm looking at Ghana right now. Ghana was once thought of as the beacon, the upcoming economic growing country. And now, economically is down. There's anarchy in the country. We have leaders that do not really care about the suffering of the people. People are suffering. When you're a good leader and you care about your nations, a good leader will come in with good governance, with good practices, good infrastructure. Right now, there are companies that were set up in Ghana and they've now pulled out. What does that mean? No more jobs for graduates. So, in closing, these are some of the topics that we're going to be talking about. I'm going to discuss what's on my mind, analysis, and I would love you to post either on Facebook or YouTube. Post your question and let me know what your answers are, what your analyses are, and what you'd like me to discuss, and I will discuss it. So don't forget, when this show is aired and it's uploaded on YouTube, subscribe, like, and most of all, comment. Bring your ideas. Bring your ideas. We're going to talk about also, Africa is always taking aid. Do you know that spiritually it's good to give? When you give, it's a blessing. But if you're always taking, how is that going to help your nation? I'm going to discuss that in part 2. So, thank you for watching. This is the Keeping It Real show with Genevieve Ama. Peace out.